Do you know who Thomas Edison really is? Or is he really a psychopathic murderer? But I won't hold you up, so let's get into today's Mystery Madness. A man named Louis Le Prince was born in 1841 in Metz, France, and his father, who was a major in the French army, was good friends with a man named Louis Daguerre, who is actually known for his invention of the daguerreotype portrait, which is essentially a portrait that used a silver plate that had a mirror-like surface that he could etch sharp and accurate photographs on, which at the time was pretty impressive. Daguerre was regularly visited at his studio by Le Prince, so while he was there, Daguerre would teach him about photography and chemistry from his studio. And that would eventually lead Le Prince to study painting and postgraduate chemistry in Paris. And once he graduated from his university, he was invited to Leeds, England by a friend named John Whitley, who worked at a brass foundry called Whitley Partners. Le Prince moved and would eventually end up marrying John's sister, Elizabeth Whitley, in 1869, who was also a talented artist. Le Prince and his wife would go on to open up a school of applied arts together called Leeds Technical School of Arts, where he would specialize in tinting and firing of photographic images. And they would eventually become wildly popular for fixing colored photographs onto metal and pottery. And their work was so well respected, in fact, that they were commissioned to make portraits for the Prime Minister and Queen Victoria herself. And during the 1880s, Le Prince became interested in helping develop fledgling cinematic technologies. So, in 1881, Louis, Elizabeth, and their children would move to New York, where Louis would manage artists painting panoramic landscapes, which in turn would inspire him to create something even bigger: pictures that move. And so in 1886, his daughter Mary, who was a teenager at the time, said that she recalled seeing her father tinkering and projecting what is now known as a movie onto the wall of their workshop. But in 1887, he would move back to Leeds due to Le Prince trying to hide from industrial spies who might try and steal his work. And that's when he officially created the first 16-lens camera and would apply for an American and British patent that was brief enough that it would allow him to transition his masterpiece into a single-lens camera in the future. They were both granted to him 2 years later in 1888, and in the same year, Le Prince finally built the first single-lens camera. The first successful use of the camera was on October 14th, 1888. That motion picture is now known as the Roundhay Garden scene, which is solidified on that specific time frame because one of the women that was recorded in the film died just 10 days later, confirming that Le Prince had a working version prior to anybody else in the world. Le Prince finally had the working camera, but he was running into some issues, the main one being that he needed a more durable material than his current film if he wanted people to be able to repeatedly watch these films without it being destroyed. And in 1889, he finally landed on celluloid to help fix his problem with the projector. The next year, he actually made an off-record presentation of his movie projector in 1890 at the National Opera in Paris. A little later, he used the same camera to film road traffic and people crossing Leeds Bridge from a site that is now marked with a commemorative blue plaque in his honor. This is the first motion camera in history, making this groundbreaking invention the first functioning movie projector more than 5 years earlier than those of Thomas Edison and the Lumiere brothers. In September of 1990, Le Prince wrote a letter to his wife that was back in New York and told her that he was preparing to travel back to America so that he can publicly premiere his work, because due to his original patent not being specific enough so that he can transition his invention into a single lens camera, it technically also meant that he didn't officially own the rights to his projector. But if he could publicly display a working model, that would solidify him in the history books as legally being the first inventor of the first working movie projector. But before making his way over, he wanted to pay his brother Albert Le Prince a visit in Dijon, France first. And so on September 16th, 1890, Le Prince boarded a train to go to Paris so that he can pick up his projector before taking his trip. But after he took the train, Le Prince was never seen again. The French police, Scotland Yard, and family looked extensively for Le Prince, but unfortunately, they never did find him. And so they officially declared him dead in 1897. It was noted that whatever happened to Le Prince, he never got the chance to make it back to Paris and pick up his movie projector because his film equipment along with his bags were neatly packed and untouched. But there are a couple interesting theories as to what happened to Le Prince. And one of the most popular theories coming from Le Prince's wife is that he was assassinated as a part of a patent war by Thomas Edison or the Lumiere brothers, because Le Prince's plans were to patent the camera in the UK first and then he would make his way over to the United States. Another theory is that his disappearance was possibly ordered by his family because he was supposedly speculated to be homosexual. But in 1890, a man that drowned was pulled from the scene who had a strong resemblance to Le Prince, but the photo was only discovered in 2003 in the Paris police archives, which led many people to believe that he possibly failed to get his motion picture to work, and overwhelmed by his debts, he may have taken his own life. But they claim that the body of the man that was drowned may have been too short to be Le Prince. And in 1889, a year after Le Prince was declared dead, his son Adolphe was called as a witness to the American Mutoscope Company in their litigation with Thomas Edison. The Le Prince family had hoped that citing Le Prince's achievements would prove that it wasn't Edison to create the first motion picture camera, but Le Prince instead. But unfortunately, they were unsuccessful, and 2 years later, Adolphe was found dead under really suspicious circumstances on Fire Island in New York in 1901 at 29 years old. Nonetheless, in 1894, Thomas Edison was credited in the United States as the inventor of the motion picture camera, while in France, the Lumiere brothers were credited for it as well, with the first official public display of motion picture happening in 1895. Louis Le Prince is now honored in his city as a hero, and also rightfully granted the title of Father of Cinematography. But that's gonna wrap it up for today, guys. So if you want to hear another story even more mysterious than this one, watch this video here.